I'm going to repeat this again because I want you to keep it in your mind. Small, positive behaviors, frequently repeated, make a big difference, make a huge difference. Try it, and you'll see what the difference is. Now we get to the 10 lessons. Number 1, they see oftentimes a cycle of this criticism, defensiveness, and counter-criticism. And this is very destructive for the relationship. The solution, they say, is to complain. Remember, just to state the fact and make the request without criticizing the person. So my example, my pet peeve is at home is messy counters, okay? So if I say to my husband, you know, I really spend a lot of time after dinner and I clean up the dishes and I wipe down the counters so they're nice and clean and they're even shiny, and I spend a lot of time doing that, and then I get up in the morning and you like your midnight snacks and you just, I see that the counters are full of crumbs again. Drives me crazy. That's a complaint. Okay. I didn't put him down. Work hard, the other person, on not counter criticizing. If that other person says, well, you do it too, you do it during the day, maybe you don't do it at night, maybe you clean it all up at night, but during the day you do it too, that's not helping, okay? That's getting into that cycle. The healthy complaining is sharing responsibility. Okay, you're right, I do. There's times when I do leave my crumbs on the counter. I don't always clean it up, but I really would like to have clean counters. It means a lot to me. That's my perception, that's my belief. Say what you want. That's what I want. Focus on the present and specifics. Don't just start digging up everything from the past. Well, you don't help me around the house, and you don't clean up the counters, and you don't do the dishes, and you don't help with the kids. Oh man. So that doesn't help at all. It doesn't help to start blaming the other person. It only helps to work with the healthy complaining. Hear the feeling and the desire underneath the complaint. What is the other person feeling? If my husband can hear what I'm feeling underneath these messy counters, what's the feeling I have? The feeling I have is frustration. Some people can pick up on the feeling really well and empathize with that. Other people have a really hard time with that. Some people might need a little help with understanding that feeling. You might need to say how you feel. What does that person really want? What I really want is cooperation. I want you to help me out. I don't want to do it all, okay? And then express appreciation for what that person does do, okay? So if my husband says, I really appreciate it that you do clean up those counters at the end of the night, that really makes a difference. And if I say, it really helps me when you clean up your mess, thank you for doing that. Number 2, getting over a chronic problem. Now, we all have problems in our marriages that repeat over and over. Let's take an example that they give in the book of an affair. And an affair certainly will cause a distance between the couple. But if you avoid the conflict, if you avoid talking about it, it's only going to separate you more and more. It's going to cause emotional, psychological, physical, and then probably sexual conflict and distance. So the solution then is to talk about how you feel. If the woman has an affair, and this is, you know, I see women having affairs, I see men having affairs. So it's not just a woman's issue, it's not just a man's issue. What needs to happen is that you face the other's fear of anger if you bring it up. So if my husband is afraid to bring this up to me, and yet he's seething with anger underneath. And I'm seething with anger because I'm not happy in the marriage. It's not going to help. So we need to face those fears that either we have or that the other person has. Maybe you don't like disagreeing. Maybe you don't like conflict. There are some people that do, but a lot of us don't. But you might need to get in there and dig out some very difficult feelings. Well, I feel like you don't care about me anymore. You don't talk to me. You don't spend time with me. You don't talk nice to me. Okay? To be able to share your needs. I need connection with you. I need to know that you care. Okay? And then if the other person listens, kind of getting over their own anger, but listens to what the other person needs and those feelings without that anger getting in the way. But what really is important here is calming yourself, because those emotions, whatever chronic problem it is, can just flood us because it's a problem that keeps happening over and over. So another example would be like a resistant teenager. If you have that problem, or a resistant kid, or a kid that's got problems in school, or you've got family problems or disagreements with your parents or whatever it is, there's a lot of passion in there. So you might need to kind of calm yourself down before you actually start expressing those needs and feelings. Otherwise, I don't know if you get like me, but when I get to a point of getting so flooded, I have a hard time expressing. I just kind of shut down. So you need to calm yourself down to avoid that flooding and to be able to think rationally. What do I want to say here? What do I need to say? What does this person need to hear from me? Number 3, we all have tons of stress. And that stress in our marriage causes emotional distance and hinders the romance between us. So we're going to take 2 different examples and 2 different solutions. So first example, maybe the husband's working too many hours and he doesn't have time for the marriage. So the solution here is to prioritize differently. Set boundaries on your work. Set boundaries on anything that gets in your way. Maybe outside social life. Maybe he gets together with the guys too much at the bars or something, and or gets together with the guys for a poker night, or goes out to a wild game, or whatever it is. Maybe he needs to set boundaries on that so that you can have time for yourselves. And put those date nights and getaways, maybe a weekend getaway, that'd be nice, on your calendar. Schedule them. Maybe even schedule time for romance. That's okay too. Taking time for exercise, taking care of yourself so that you can prioritize yourself. And if each of you is doing that, then you bring a better, happier person with better personal care to the marriage. And again, talk about feelings and needs and wants. And then the second example, another one for me, cleaning and organizing, especially when people are coming over, maybe for the holidays or for a birthday. I can come unglued. I need to set those realistic goals so that I don't get all stressed out. Because if I get all stressed out, I don't have time to sit down with my husband and watch TV. I don't have time to talk with him. I don't have time to think about how I can connect with him more, how I can take time for that romance. So I need to set those specific measurable goals, maybe pacing myself, which I've said over and over in these webinars. It's very hard for me. I'm still working on it. Dividing big goals into smaller ones, more doable ones, okay? So that you can have that time again for your marriage. Again, make sure that the marriage is a priority, not just other stuff that gets in the way. Number 4, you never talk to me. So there's that never. That's a criticism, it's an attack that kind of invites that counterattack and that defensiveness, and then the contempt happens. And then people feel unsafe to share. And then the stonewalling happens and the silence and more criticism and more bad feelings. So if this is an issue that one person really wants to talk and connect and the other person doesn't talk, this is what the example is that I would like to give. To remember when you were dating, there's a reason why you got married, because you love each other. Back in those days, maybe you'd talk for hours and you'd go out and you'd have a great time together. What happened in the marriage to get it to be attacks and counterattacks and feeling unsafe and stonewalling and criticism? What happened? The solution, they say, is to express what you want and what you don't want. Get out of the counter criticism, the counter complaints, or stating what you want. So if that other person is saying, I don't want this and I want that, and you start saying, well, I want this and I want that, but you're not listening, that's not helping. Listen to the other person. That takes a lot of humility to pull back on your own stuff, to be able to listen to that other person and respond by saying, okay, tell me what you want. What is it that you want? Can you rephrase that for me, please, in a request? That makes a difference, okay? Appreciate when that other person actually listens to you. Thank you for listening. That meant so much to me. Thank you for responding to me. That makes a difference to me. I want to hear what you think. Nurture those positives in your relationship, your thoughts and your feelings, that fondness and admiration that you had once for each other. And the last one here isn't actually from the Gottmans. It's from, you probably have heard of the love languages. And this is from Gary Chapman, okay? He said in his book, Love Languages, the 5 Love Languages, if complaining gets to be too much of a problem in your marriage, can you just stop all your complaints for a time? Use the example of a woman who wanted her husband to paint a room. And she's been asking him this for years and years. And he still hasn't painted the walls. And so Gary Chapman asks the woman, well, does he know what you want? And she says, well, of course. I keep asking him. I keep telling him what I want. And so his solution is try not criticizing him for anything. No criticism at all for anything for 2 weeks and see what happens. And she says, well, I don't know how that's going to get the walls painted. And he says, just try it. I've asked couples to do that. It's amazing what happens. It might take longer than 2 weeks to actually make a difference in your relationship. But once you change it up, once you start not complaining, and remember, the Gottman said 5 times more positive interactions and feelings, if those are shared instead of the complaints and the criticisms, it can make a big difference to that other person. All of a sudden, the other person says, she's not complaining anymore. What happened? Maybe she's happier. Maybe I want to cooperate with her. Maybe I want to actually do something nice for her because she's actually being nicer to me. Give it a try. Number 5, you don't care about my dreams. Now, we're going to use the example of house buying because I can easily get into my own dreams about houses. When dreams are overlooked in conflict, they say, oftentimes your flooded emotions just kind of cloud the hearing and the responding and the listening, of course. So if my husband and I are talking about buying another house, someday we're going to have to downsize. So if I say, I'm not sure where I want to live, but gee, I really love it when I go to other people's houses and they're so beautiful and they're beautifully decorated and they're all so nice and new. And my husband says, well, we can't afford that. We're going to have to downsize. You know that. Yeah, I know that. So it's kind of pushing away my dream. Okay. I just want him to listen. I also need to listen to his dream about a house. If we move, he wants to move out into the country. He wants to move where there's trees and there's wildlife, and he'd actually like to move to a hobby farm. And no chickens, no pigs. I can't do that. I can't do cows. I can't milk cows. I can't do all of that. And so what we need to do, though, is to be able to listen to that other person's feelings. What are they feeling? What do they want? What are they dreaming about? So the idea here is take time for each other without solving the problem. Just take time, sit back and just kind of dream with each other. Look for ways to be flexible. And John and Julie Gottman bring this little graphic into the book. And this is my rendition of it. If you are so inflexible and can't flex to what the other person is saying or wants, that's going to create some problems with your dream sharing. Okay? You might need to just support the spirit of the other person's dreams. And for me to be able to say to my husband, I know that you want to live in the country. I know that's really important to you. I know wildlife is important to you. But maybe we can be okay with, right now we've got squirrels and we've got chipmunks and we've got lots of birds and we've got sometimes raccoons and sometimes deer and other things that come to our backyard because you like to feed them so much. I know that's important to you. And if he can support my idea, my dream of wanting that beautiful new house, I know that you want that, Marital. And how important that is to feel validated for your dreams, because you don't want to be squashed. Okay. Number 6, if the emotional intensity is avoided, healing is often delayed. So let's take the example of a depressed person. So if that depressed person, it's very easy for that person to just kind of withdraw into themselves. If that person has a hard time expressing that depression or being very present to the woman, let's take an example of the man is depressed. Okay, my response might be to nag, control, or try to bring him back into the relationship. Or maybe I just get fed up with it and I just withdraw. So neither is good. None of those are good. The solution for this is certainly if there's depression, if there's anxiety or any other type of mental illness, to get some therapy, maybe be on meds for it. Treatment for that is important. And maybe that's an important piece to bring to therapy, that depression piece, that anxiety piece, and how that affects you as the other person. Be willing to listen to the person who's depressed, the person who's anxious, the person who has maybe OCD or PTSD. So important to listen for what they are going through to try to understand. And if you need to draw them out, ask those questions that encourage their sharing of emotions. Consider both people's needs, because both of you have needs. And then develop rituals for stress-free conversation. 15 minutes a day is not too much to ask out of 24 hours, is it? Okay. But it needs to have no distractions. I just talked to a couple about this the other day, and I said, try not to do it in a place that's a community place, like the like the kitchen. So you can't necessarily eliminate the kids coming into the kitchen. You can't eliminate the kids, but what you can do is try to make the environment safer for you. Maybe go up to your bedroom, just sit on the edge of the bed, or take 2 folding chairs and sit and look at each other. Maybe don't even look at each other too much anymore. Take turns giving support and sharing. 15 minutes a day. Number 7, I shouldn't have to nag. So one of the big things that they talk about is getting rid of the harsh startup. Starting a conversation with that sarcasm, that criticism, that contempt. Because the person on the other side of you is going to often react defensively to that because they're going to feel attacked and they're going to want to defend themselves. So the example that I would always come up with, because I hear it so much from women who come in for therapy, women want men to help more around the house. But I look at myself and I say to myself, what did I used to say? You never help me around the house. Can't you see that I'm working my fingers to the bone and I've got the kids to deal with and I'm working full time and I come home and I'm tired and then you expect me to make dinner for you, and what do you think I am? I'm not your maid. I'm not supposed to do everything for you. That would be a harsh startup, okay? Instead, they suggest a soft startup. I'm going to read to you a couple examples. And what you're going to find is if you have a soft startup instead of that harsh startup, that the other person is often more cooperative. So let's say right here, I'm not sure I get the right spot because I'm going to the holidays are approaching. Here we are, holidays are approaching, and you're worried because your partner often spends more on her family than the 2 of you can afford. Ooh. And the harsh startup would be, I hate the holidays. Your shopping always drives us into debt. Okay, criticism, not a complaint. It's attacking the person. Softened startup would be, I really want to enjoy the holidays with you this year, but I'm worried about the bills. Can we talk about a budget to hear the request? That's a soft startup. The other one they give that I would really like to mention is, the scenario is you like to make love tonight, but your partner's been distant. You wonder whether he even finds you attractive anymore. The harsh startup. What's wrong with your sex drive anyway? You sure don't seem like the guy I married. Well, who's going to want to connect after that? A soft startup. I've really been missing you. Remember how we made love at the cabin last summer? Or when we were first married? Tell me what I can do to get you interested. Ooh, what an invitation. Share appreciations for each other, okay? And something I've never heard of before, they say use the Aikido principle. Yield to win. Now, how many of us want to yield? But how many of us want to win? If you want to win, sometimes we need to yield to the other person. So to be able to soften your approach, to be able to be nice even when the other person isn't nice, to explain your position, explain what you want. And maybe the other person needs to ask, well, why is it so important to you? If my husband asks me, why is me helping you so important to you? It makes a big difference, because then he's more interested in what's really going on underneath me. And I love the phrase, help me understand. If you remember that, I think that will help you to be able to as you're listening to that other person and they're complaining or criticizing even, if you just kind of revert back into yourself and you say, help me understand what you want. Help me understand what you're getting at. It takes humility to be able to say that. Give it a try. And this is a quote from their book, Harsh Words and Defensiveness Often Trump Good Intentions. And to be able, and this isn't a pun on Mr. Trump, but to remember harsh words and defensiveness, that just kind of throws out the good intentions that you might have. Okay? If you want to share those good intentions, share the good intentions without the harsh words, without the defensiveness. Number 8, there's no passion, there's no fun in our marriage anymore. So, for an example here, the wife is angry, but doesn't express it. Husband withdraws from her anger because he doesn't want her anger, he doesn't want to be around her. And both are angry and they feel emotionally distant, but they're ignoring it. Solution, they say in the book, is to accept and talk about the anger and even use it as a way to improve your marriage. It's an interesting concept. So, for many years, I've done a lot of things in anger management, and I encourage people to work through their anger. But anger is going to happen. It's part of relationship. It's part of living. And so we need to be able to say, what's underneath the anger? There's always something underneath it. We need to understand that for each other. And a note for husbands, and this is out of their book, okay? Embrace her anger because she may actually have a good reason for anger that you need to listen to, guys, okay? It can be an important resource for change, good change in your marriage. And something that's very important to all of us, you can actually have more affection, more passion, and then more fun. When you get through that anger, you resolve it, and you resolve those hurt feelings, you heal the hurt. Okay, here's another one that is heard a lot in therapy. We only have time for the kids. We don't have time for each other anymore. But focus on the children, really mask what is going on underneath. If you're having trouble expressing your needs, then you might need to express what you need. And the other person needs to listen. But the other person will listen more if you connect in a positive way. So here's where they talk about turning toward a partner's bid for connection. And I'm going to read again from the book. So the bid for connection is, my partner pours me a cup of coffee as I'm working at the computer. Is that a bid for connection? Yes, it can be. They're doing something nice for me. A turning away response is silence, no acknowledgement, ignoring it. A turning against response, they say, is, looks like you made it too weak again. Or a turning toward response is, thanks, that's so thoughtful of you. Okay. Turn toward that partner's bid for connection. Another example is, my partner reads aloud a joke that he or she thinks is funny. A turning away response, have you seen my black shoes? Just distracting from what they just did. Turning against response, I can't concentrate when you're reading like that. That just kind of dismisses the whole idea of what you were trying to do. A turning toward response, oh, that's really funny, thanks for sharing that. Okay. Or maybe you don't think it's funny, but maybe you can just appreciate sharing. Handle the conflict, they say, with a blueprint. And the blueprint here is take a quiet time, discuss one problem only, not everything, just one specific problem. One person is the speaker, one is the listener. This is hard. And then the next one is even harder. The speaker says everything that person wants to say. Now, this can take some people a long time. Some people can take a couple hours to say what they want to say. The listener needs to ask questions and take notes. Why? Because that tells the other person that they're really interested. And the interaction must be civil and polite. So stay away from the criticism, stay away from the counter criticism, stay away from all of that stuff that's going to hurt. Just listen. When finished, the listener restates what the speaker just said, and the speaker clarifies if necessary. And they go back and forth until the listener says, until the speaker says, yes, that's right. And then you switch roles and you start over. Now, this can take a while. So this is where I suggest, maybe go to Perkins and have a piece of pie and take some time to do this. It takes time to have a good marriage. Number 10, last and not least, you're not satisfied unless there's some drama. So again, not getting gridlocked, stuck in chronic perpetual issues that cause that conflict. So the examples are about differences. And they talk about being a planner versus a non-planner. So a lot of people are going away for the holidays or after the holidays. Now, some people plan to the hilt. Other people just want to be spontaneous. That's a difference. That's just part of our uniqueness. We might need to accept that difference. Some people like to be more at home. Other people want to go out and party and be with friends. These are specific, unique qualities that we need to accept in each other and respect those differences. Maybe look at the goals. Maybe the person who is a partier wants to have more fun. Can you be willing to cooperate with the other person who wants to be at home more and maybe have some fun at home? Maybe you can do some board games or whatever is fun to you. Okay. Challenge each other with chess. Challenge each other with trivia questions. I don't know, whatever it is that is fun to you. And create that culture of shared values and meaning. Because if you find that commonality, then you got that common bond.